On Radio 97, our resident lawyer Despina Priala of boutique law firm Priala Legal in Runaway Bay with us every Thursday. She brings all her textbooks with her and her legal expertise, provides some general advice on the latest hot topics. She has experience that spans more than 25 years in areas of property and commercial law. She prepares wills as well as part of estate planning and litigation. She's with us once again. Good Thursday morning, Despina.
Good morning, Wayne. Good morning, Brooke.
Good morning, Desi. So this morning is a topic that we have spoken about in the past here on Talking Law. Stamp duty reforms in New South Wales. It is creeping up in January. The year's going quick. So I thought it'd be timely for us to discuss, Despina, what's being proposed and how does it affect especially new home buyers? What's the update?
Yeah, it's a good time to talk about it because the property market, as you know, is substantially skyrocketed in the last year, particularly since we last talked about it on the show last year when it was first proposed and discussed about these stamp duty reforms only in New South Wales we're talking about, not Queensland. So what they're proposing, or what the state government is proposing, and it's now part of their 2022-23 budget that's been announced, is that to help first home buyers get into the market, and as I said, given the market values of properties have skyrocketed, to help first home buyers get into the market, they're going to create an option for first home buyers to opt out of paying for stamp duty as part of the budget when they buy their first home, and instead to elect to pay an annual tax on the property.
That sounds it sounds good straight off the bat.
It does, and you can imagine when a first home buyers are buying their property, part of their budget is stamp duty. Stamp duty can be horrendous, and in New South Wales and Queensland there are thresholds of the values of properties when a first home buyer won't pay duty and when they start to pay duty. So in New South Wales the value is $650,000, in Queensland it's $500,000. You know, a little bit low considering the values of properties have gone exponentially out of control.
Yep.
So those values should probably be reviewed, definitely. But if you're buying a property over those thresholds, you're going to start to pay duty. You're no longer exempt, or you're under the threshold. So New South Wales government has announced this stamp duty reform, and it will be coming into place apparently 16th of January next year. So now what they've done, unlike last year where they just, discussed it very generally, what they've now got on their website is they've actually got the tax rates that will apply if you choose to opt into this type of program where you don't pay stamp duty and you elect to pay this annual tax. So I thought we'd run through some examples, and this is directly from the New South Wales government website, and perhaps people can start to get a feel of what it might mean for them as first home buyers and what they could be looking at to pay in terms of this annual tax.
Now, of course, as you say, it means no longer for some people having to pay this up front. So overall, if you spread it out over 10 years or 15 years or 20 years or whatever, are you likely to pay less to the government overall over an extended period?
Well, potentially, yes, with these tax rates now being identified, and we'll go through some examples. But of course, it's going to depend on how long you live at the property, because it's an annual tax rate, which means instead of paying a lump sum of stamp duty, which is a form of tax, up front when you buy, so you've got to actually not only save your deposit to buy your first home, but you've got to save to pay the stamp duty if you're over the threshold of the values of what you want to buy, and of course registration fees to New South Wales land titles. And so all that forms part of your budget. So instead of having to factor in your stamp duty, then you won't have to. You just pay this annual tax rate. But as I said, it's annual tax rate, which means every year you would pay this annual tax rate, and it's going to be indexed. So it's not going to stay at the same rate every year, say for if you're living there for 10 years. So you can't probably calculate the exact amount you would pay over 10 years compared to what you pay up front, but it could give you a good indication.
It is a little bit of a gamble, is what you're saying then.
Exactly. So let's look at some examples, and this is straight from the government website. So if a couple was buying their first home worth $750,000 in New South Wales. And the land value was given $270,000. So just to stop there, the annual land tax is going to be assessed on the unimproved land value, not what you buy the property for, the purchase price.
Oh, okay.
So, yes. So that's interesting and very important to understand. So this example, a couple of first-time buyers are buying a property worth $750,000. The land value of that apartment is given $270,000. So as if they're eligible to be first-time buyers, they would qualify for a concessional rate of stamp duty, and they would be paying stamp duty of $20,870. Now, if you would apply the annual property tax based on the rates that they're giving at the moment, the annual property tax in the first year would be $1,210.
Cheap as chips.
Yes, so it's a bit of a no-brainer. They choose the property tax in this example, and even if it was indexed, and you could do an index of say 2.5% or 3% over 10 years, you could still calculate basically what it would be.
Yeah.
I would have thought to a very large extent, and then you could do the comparison. So I think now they've given these rates, perhaps it would be a good option for first-time buyers. But look, once the 16th of January kicks in, the point to make is that these buyers will have the option to select this or not to select it. And I think it'd be very important for first-time buyers to get that advice up front before they commit to paying that stamp duty or to elect the annual tax, so they completely understand what that means to them. And once you do select that, you only get it once, because it's the first-time buyers that they have this election. So you select it once, you're eligible to do so, and it applies that first time, but you can't continue to do that every time you buy a property. It's only for your first home.
Yeah.
What about if you bought a property in a very valuable, say, coastal area, for example, and the land, the value of the land is going up very quickly? I mean, obviously that means each year you're going to be paying considerably more. Could it actually be not worthwhile to choose that one? Could you find that you might actually have done the wrong thing?
Yeah, potentially, that's right. But as to whether you can opt out of that remains to be seen, and we'd have to look at that a bit closer, maybe on another segment. But yeah, I think once you select, you pretty much have to stick with that every year.
And is this an option for all first-home buyers?
Yes, if they're eligible, right? So there are conditions to be eligible as a first-home buyer in every state. So you've got to meet those qualifications and conditions. One of them is to be an Australian citizen or to buy a property with someone who is an Australian citizen, be over the age of 18. And of course, this relates to properties that are worth under $1.5 million in New South Wales.
Oh, well, there you go. It's all happening January 16th, Despina?
16th of January 2023. So get some advice early and upfront. There are other conditions that will apply, such as, when you have to move into the property, how long you're going to stay there. So there's a lot of things to understand as first-time buyers, but it's important that we raise it again. It's going to be provided as part of the budget as of January next year, and to definitely get that advice before you buy.
Good stuff. And more information can be found on newsouthwales.nsw.gov.au. And coming up next, an employer was found vicariously liable for a sexual assault claim by one employee against another. Very interesting case coming up next on Talking Law. Don't go anywhere. You're listening to Radio 97.